Combine don't even tell you how they managed to occupy Earth anymore. They just look at you like this. I'm gonna say something that's pretty shocking to some Half-Life fans. Hopefully, just some. The Combine actually really doesn't seem that formidable or powerful in pretty much most regards. And I can actually prove it. It's not hearsay or me making shit up. This is verifiable from the game itself. Now, you may be asking me, what the fuck are you on about? The Combine are an interdimensional fucking empire. What do you mean? Well, surprise, surprise, being an interdimensional empire doesn't actually mean you have to be really all that advanced. You just have to be lucky a lot of times. Of course, we don't actually know their full potential, but at least in Earth's case, it was just luck. Now, I'll expand a bit more on that later, but let's continue to the next talking point. Now, you could say the Combine have a pretty effective dominion over humanity, and so far all the resistance attempts, or whatever you want to call them, have failed. And I have to say to that, well, I mean, there have been plenty of fascistic or oppressive ideologies that have ruled over major regions of Earth for several times throughout human history, so they're actually not that special, and I mean, there will always be cracks underneath the surface, and it would be pretty difficult to ignore that fact. Then you might say, well, look at, like, the Citadel, and hell, we know at least to some degree that they have, like, a giant fucking Dyson sphere around their home star. They can do all these amazing feats. They got force fields, they can vaporize people or things. They can fucking modify people and all these animals. And I have to admit, that is pretty impressive from a human standpoint, but we don't really know, like, the galactic or intergalactic or interdimensional standard for these things. I think that they just happen to be advanced in those areas, and to be fair, humans are far more advanced in other areas that the Combine are sorely lacking. Then there's the obvious thing that you can point out. The Combine took over Earth in 7 hours. 7 hours! So far, I can only think of one country that took over another country in, like, less than a day, and that's, like, Nazi Germany taking over Denmark. But there's some really important things you have to think about whenever you consider the Combine's invasion and how they managed to claim dominion over Earth. I'll explain that later. First off, I want to tackle the interdimensional empire part of the Combine. So first of all, of course, like I mentioned earlier, they have things to work on, and so I think that being interdimensional does not really necessitate that they're, like, super fucking powerful in nearly every regard and should be treated as, like, formidable at all times. I mean, they could have just, like, gotten lucky with their tech and managed to conquer a great deal of the universes. I mean, it's not out of the question, but it's really vague, so it's really hard to say exactly. But I don't think the case is that they're powerful because of their interdimensional technology. I've pretty much already covered the ruling over humanity effectively for 20 years thing, so I'm just going to skip over that. When it comes to Combine technology and their feats, I truly think it's just purely incidental. It's just coincidental. It's possible that they're actually just not all that advanced, and they kind of like just spec'd into these giant mega structures because obviously they need to power their interdimensional empire. They need the energy and the resources. So of course they're gonna build these giant fucking structures. It's natural, but I don't think it's indicative of their technological prowess, because obviously they're lacking sorely in many other areas, such as teleportation. I mean, that's the crux of, like, the entire Half-Life 2 series, is that they're really fucking bad at it, and they need to get all the technology they can get. And of course, I think the only reason they're even holding dominion over humanity in the first place and allowing them to survive, and why humanity has even managed to get an edge on them, is because they need this teleportation technology really, really badly, and it could really serve them well if they had it. But the thing is, they don't, and the fact that they have to kneel over for a arguably far less advanced species is really indicative of just how poor their empire is, like, research-wise. Like, why aren't they able to research this? What's so special about teleportation that they can't just do it on their own? It's really interesting to me, and I'm wondering, what the hell are they doing? And finally, of course, the 7-hour war. The big elephant in the room we gotta talk about. You see, humanity was already, like, under so much stress, and they were, like, just kind of fucked anyway by the time the Combine got there. Because you gotta remember, the Resonance Cascade happened, and all these, like, the Zen invasion came across, sweeping at least over the United States, but probably all across the entire world, given the state of things are in games like Half-Life Alyx and, of course, Half-Life 2. They had to deal with that for, like, potentially weeks, if not months. The same goes for, like, portal storms. They probably had major structures just completely destroyed, and they had infrastructure problems for, like, they couldn't handle it. And of course, so that means by the time the Combine actually does come to take claim over Earth, if you read in the Earth Surrenders newspaper from Half-Life Alyx, the high definition version, you'll see that the United Nations, they just kind of like just fucking gave up. They kneeled over to the Combine because they needed a emergency savior to prevent Earth from being fucking annihilated by the Xenian wildlife and from the portal storms. And of course, the Combine were able to alleviate that to some degree. So I'm not gonna make any strong decisions here or any opinions or anything like that, but I'd say they were probably just being pragmatic as always. Those United Nations. You could say their decision was right or wrong, but they just made a decision in the moment, and it only took 7 hours for them to make that decision. So that's just kind of how things went, and Combine got really lucky with that, and so they wouldn't have to do. So they didn't do a prolonged war for weeks or months against humanity. Of course, they did do a lot of destruction because of that 7-hour period, but obviously they could have gone for longer, and humanity could have held out longer if it weren't for the United Nations immediately surrendering, practically. That's pretty much all I have to say about it, but if I'm going to be super fair, I know that Valve is probably their intention narratively was to make the Combine be like a fucking all-imposing empire that humanity is facing at almost insurmountable odds, but clearly, definitively, they have some flaws that they really need to work out. I would hope that Valve knows these flaws, and hopefully they will aim to correct them in HLX, whenever that is announced and comes out. And maybe future Half-Life installments. Of course, not mainline games, probably, but if they make any other material, I really hope they expand the Combine more. We really need to see this more formidable, impressive side of the Combine, as opposed to what Half-Life 2 has presented us, which makes the Combine look dainty. It looks like it can't take care of itself properly, and overall looks pretty shit if you think about it more than a few minutes, which I have. Now, you can go power scaling all you want with other fictional empires, but I'm just gonna leave this video here. I don't have time to talk about that shit. I discussed this with a lot of other people, including some friends, and they all seem to agree with these points. Anyhow, if you enjoyed the video, please consider liking, please consider subscribing, please follow me on places like Twitch, because I stream sometimes, maybe like once a month at this point, but listen, I'm pretty passionate about Half-Life, so if you want to discuss it with me, you can also just hit me up on Discord. I go by the same name, just all lowercase. Just don't feel afraid. We can certainly discuss. Anyhow, have a good day.